There's been people that have accused me of not being as close to them because they got married.
Right.
That was not the fact. That was not what happened there.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in those situations, they married people who didn't leave the door open for us to maintain, our friendship.
Yeah.
And also they changed. Suddenly, I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't. This person, whoever doesn't want me to.
Yeah.
And that happened in more than one situation. Yeah. So because of that, I have a little bit of trauma when I hear somebody who's with someone who's kind of controlling. Right. I back off of that friendship. Maybe I shouldn't, but I can't deal with all that stress. I'm not trying to fight with anyone over a friendship.
Yeah.
So I tend to pull away from that person when I see that, and maybe in their eyes it seems like I did that because they got married. But hi, welcome to the 24th episode of Love, Growth, and Narratives. I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Frederick.
And today's topic is around love. In particular, we're talking today about maintaining relationships with your friends, family, and self after and through your marriage. And as you know, we just got married. So we're just at the beginning stages of this work. While Freddy has lived it through past experiences, I have lived it more so watching others. And so between those two, what we bring to the table, we are going to work through this and talk about this and see how we can make the best, making sure that we are still maintaining ourselves and relationships prior to the marriage while strengthening and pouring into our marriage. Before we go any further, we're going to have Frederick talk a little bit about some housekeeping.
Yeah, I'm going to do a little bit now. We'll do a little bit at the end as well. But I just really want to tell everyone that I appreciate you sticking with us on this journey. This is something we really enjoy doing. The YouTube channel is doing well. We're getting closer and closer to our goal of 100 subscribers by the end of the year. We would like to move a little bit faster, so if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And if any of these episodes bring value, please hit the like button, share with your friends, as well as listen on Apple as well as Amazon, and you can also watch or listen on Spotify. But other than that, that's it.
Yeah. And as the young people say, let's get into it.
Right.
So I feel like in my relationships over the years that I have made it a point not to lose my friendships. Now, someone out there can correct me if I'm wrong, but I try to still maintain the relationships with my friends and bring my friends into the relationship in terms of like us all hanging out together. But I have to say that this relationship in particular, in a very long time, there's been other people where I've been able to really do that. Yeah. So in prior relationships, we weren't as serious and I couldn't, I just wasn't able to spend the time with everyone together as a group because I didn't really date people who that really wanted to do that.
Yeah.
But with you, I'm finding myself definitely bridging together all of my relationships with everyone, which is a really nice feeling. I don't like abandoning my relationships with people. My friends are so dear to me. With me being only a child, a lot of my friends are like sisters to me. And I really try to make sure that we keep those relationships going. And most of my friends have had children and marriages, and they've been able to maintain it with me for the most part. I think most people have been able to really make sure that, of course, it looks different than it does when we were, single and able to go out whenever we felt like it. But we still spent time together and we still built relationships with the new family that we created.
Yeah.
So how about you? Like you, and being married before?
Yeah. So for me, I was really trying, and I know this is a word that people love to use, but intentional, and making sure that we were able to stay ourselves. And the reason why that's been important, at least for me, is because what I can say is in my last marriage, I did feel like I lost a lot of myself and I wasn't hanging out with my friends as much as I should have. And this is not a criticism on my ex-wife at all. This is a boundary that I never set. And so I can't get upset if someone crosses a boundary that I never articulated in the first place.
Right.
And so when we got together, because I remember you had told me that you had some male friends that you wanted to maintain a friendship with, and I was like, yeah, fine, that's
Mm-hmm.
I don't have an issue with that. And one of your friends approached me maybe a year or so into our relationship, and she was telling me how she still wanted to be able to hang out with you and all this kind of stuff. And I said, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted you to maintain who you were, and who you are throughout this relationship, because I know what happens when you lose yourself in a relationship.
Right.
And when you do, it's really hard to find yourself after that.
Mm.
And that's why you see a lot of people that get stuck in bad relationships. It's hard for them to get out because they don't even know who they are anymore.
Right.
And so for me, it was critical for us to keep our friends, to keep our family relationships. You like hanging out with your mom sometime, go for it. I like hanging out with your mom sometimes. And so,
Go for it.
yeah. So I'm gonna do that too. And but luckily, and maybe it's because I'm older and I have just awesome friends, I didn't experience one of the things that I was worried about experiencing was, here you go again getting married. I didn't hear that from my friends. I have some great friends that have seen all the stuff that I've been through and really wanted for this to work. And it doesn't hurt that my friends also love you. And so that's also a great thing. But in terms of that, have you had conversations with any of your friends that were nervous about what would happen with the relationship?
Well, I do think there was at least one friend who was concerned about our friendship
Mhm.
changing. And the friendship does change a little bit. All the
Yes,
relationships change a little bit
absolutely.
because time wise,
Right.
right? Especially because we have each other, we have a
Mhm.
dog, and we have, a child.
Yes.
So that does impact your time,
Yes.
right? And I'm still trying not to let it impact it too much. I'm not
Mhm.
as available as before, I guess at all times, but I'm always still available. Like if
Right.
anyone is going to be able to get through to me at any time. And if there's anything serious going on, I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
I don't think that I have abandoned anyone. It's not my style and it's never has been.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean that it can't happen if something really major is going on with, a family member or you that I have to say no to something on the outside. But, my friends are really important to me and I know that they're very, I'm important to them as well. And I've seen that throughout the years. So I'm not going to abandon that. And I'm glad that I'm with somebody who understands that. And I wouldn't expect that from you either.
Right.
But I do feel, it is harder maybe to get our schedules together.
Yes.
We still try.
Yes.
We don't just like not try, So
Right.
we know that we're still going to be there for each other. But it does change when you have to spread yourself a little bit thinner.
Right. Which is interesting because this is something that when you were single that you had to go through with your friends that
Mhm.
were getting married or were in long-term relationships and weren't as available. And so, do you feel like they've given you the same amount of grace that you gave them?
Yes, I think we're older
Yeah.
now, and there's just and no one really has very young kids.
Right.
But even still, quite a few of my friends who had young kids, I was still there. Like
Right.
I'm godmother several times to people, and so I helped them out. I was
Mhm.
there. Their kids spent time with me. They spent the night with me, and all of that. So we were able to still maintain a lot of it. Of course, it still changed, but we were
Yes.
still there for each other. It wasn't like these huge gaps where
Right.
we didn't see or speak to each other. That was very rare that happened. It maybe happened with some people, but
Yeah.
not the closest people. It really didn't. And then everyone's been pretty cool with me with this situation. I mean, maybe there wasn't as much, what's the word, excitement around the wedding that I had hoped, the journey to the wedding that I had hoped from some of my longer term friends. But when it came down to it, everybody was there for me, especially the day of and as it got closer. But no one really gave me a super hard time. I think now maybe some people may not ask me to do things as often because maybe they don't want to hear no,
Wow.
But
yeah,
what can I do? I just make sure that I'm still like talking to them and hanging out with them as much as I can.
Yeah.
And also trying to balance the time for myself, because before we got together, I spent a lot of time resting. I spent a lot of time laying around. I mean, I was in different stages of my life. I did different things, but I would say around the time you came, it was like I chilled on the weekends, and now we almost always have something to do, like several things to do in a day, but a lot of times it's with some of our friends or family.
Well, now that brings up an interesting question there, because now that, and not just since we've been married, but since we've really gotten close, your weekends have become, exponentially more busy than it used to be. Do you feel at any time that you've lost yourself or lost what you really enjoy or what makes you by being so busy?
The only thing I think that I've lost is probably the traveling. I mean, since we've been together, I have traveled, I think, twice in 3 years. But, or maybe it was more than that. Maybe it was 3 times, I think, that I traveled. Twice on a plane, another time just went away with like Elsa Siobhan, I think. But, oh no, that was before we met, actually. It was, yeah, but probably not too soon before. Anyway, I do think that it's changed a little, like in terms of like me wanting to rest, but you're really good about just go ahead and rest, go ahead and relax, not pushing me to get up, too much earlier than I would like to get up. You're really good about that. So that's awesome. I appreciate that, honestly. But I feel a little bit guilty. Like you're up and starting and I'm like laying around scrolling on my on my phone. But I just kind of want to be, after a tough week of constant, up and down and my name being called 1,000 times a day, I just kind of want to veg out. But yet I know at the same time, I want to make experiences with you and all of that. I do feel like I'm not spending as much time with my mom. I mean, I go over there weekly to take care of some things, but we used to like go out all the time in restaurants and hang out and do all of these things. And I would say since the pandemic, really, we haven't been doing as much of that, but I want to. So I try to, once in a while, make sure we do something that's special. It's not out of not wanting to, it's out of more like, I'm just exhausted.
Right.
And, I want as much, when the weekends come, it's like, oh, I just want to relax. We've now added this podcast, which takes up, a decent chunk of our Sunday every single week. So it's just, I need to manage my time better too. I mean, I do waste a lot of time. And even I'm not devoting enough time to self-care, whether you're there or not. I haven't been in the recent years. You actually inspire me to do that because you're always encouraging me, go get that facial, go get that massage, go sit and do nothing. Like, so I appreciate that. I don't feel like you're going to lose yourself a little bit when you're in a relationship, I think.
Well, so there's a difference between losing yourself and evolving. And so I guess that's the difficult piece, is that regardless, as you get older, you're going to evolve. And so things that were important to you before may be less important to you later. But you have to ask yourself in terms of your interests.
Right.
Are you still interested in those things? And then you also feel like you don't have the time, because that's not really evolving. That is kind of losing out on a piece of yourself.
Right. Well, no, then I guess I'm not really losing anything. I'm just evolving. Things are just changing, because you don't control me. You don't keep me from doing the things that I like to do.
No.
And you'll also do things with me that I want to do that maybe you don't want to do. So that helps a lot right there. Like who you're with definitely helps, maintain a certain lifestyle, so I appreciate that. But I do want to find more hobbies. I just don't know if that I can add anything else because the plate feels so full.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always easy for me to put myself on the side, which means that I'm probably not loving myself as much as I should. I definitely put more love into other people because I don't want to let them down as much. But I do need to put more into myself because that ends up turning into resentment, even though it's not their fault at all.
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is that the relationship that is suffering here is your relationship with yourself. because one of the things that I think that's really been nice between the two of us is that now we have mutual friends.
Yes.
Where I've had friends before and now they're our friends, and you've had friends that are now our friends. And so that makes it a whole lot easier because now instead of you going out with someone or I going out, we're going out with another couple or something like that, which is also nice.
Right. Absolutely. Or having people over. We did for a while, and people having us over, and it doesn't have to be a couple thing,
Right.
But we definitely have been doing. I've been doing more couple things than ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's been really nice. But I think it's very important to do that when people stop. Did they just drop people? I think it's just detriment to your relationship with yourself, with your friends, and with your partner. Really, because you start to resent them, and you want to still maintain being with the people who have been there for you.
Yes. Well, especially if you still like them, because sometimes relationships with friends change. I know I've had that.
Yeah.
Where I've had close friends, and for whatever reason, we're just going in two different directions in life, and just the friendship falls apart. But that's not because of a relationship.
Right.
That was because the two of us are just going in two different directions.
Right. There's been people that have accused me of not being as close to them because they got married.
Right.
That was not the fact. That was not what happened there. I feel like in those situations, they married people who didn't leave the door open for us to maintain, our friendship.
Yeah.
And also they changed. Suddenly, I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't. This person, whoever doesn't want me to.
Yeah.
And that happened in more than one situation. So because of that, I have a little bit of trauma when I hear somebody who's with someone who's kind of controlling. I back off of that friendship. Maybe I shouldn't, but I can't deal with all that stress. I'm not trying to fight with anyone over a friendship.
Yeah.
So I tend to pull away from that person when I see that, and maybe in their eyes it seems like I did that because they got married, or they had kids or whatever. But so many of my friends did that very young.
Yeah.
And I've been there for them.
Yeah.
Through it all. So I don't know. I would want someone to tell me if I were doing that, and I do realize I have to make a conscious effort. Let me call this person. How are they doing? Let me check in on them. And that's not just because, it's partly because of this relationship, because I have a whole bunch of other things on my plate, but also honestly with me getting older and menopause, like my memory is just not there. So I have to force myself. Like I'll sit there and be like, go through my friends list and be like, have I talked to this person? Have I checked in on them? To make sure that work is important to me. Yeah. That work is very important to me. And there's been a few people in my life that they're so incredibly thoughtful that it made a huge impact on me. And it makes me, I think about them when I feel myself slipping and not being as thoughtful. One of those people is Irene Cervantes. Like I work with her, and she's just like always been incredibly thoughtful. Whether, I don't care what it is. It could be a special occasion. It could be just because something could have happened in your life or someone you love's life, and she's sending you prayers and all that. Just very, very thoughtful when she has her own really huge family that counts on her, and she's still always there. Another person who's incredibly thoughtful is Eden. She's very she thinks of everything, like the most creative gifts. She thinks of it ahead of time, over and over and over. It's unbelievable to me, actually, like how much she thinks of everything all the time. Another person who has been pretty crucial in that is Medea. Yes. Like no matter what is going on with her, she is always
absolutely
there, whether it's physically on the phone, sending me something, just constantly thoughtful. Elsa is also very, very thoughtful,
Yes.
and so is Laura. Like, there are just some people, and Jen, there's just so many. I can say her name so many, but there's been people specifically have inspired me to be more thoughtful on a daily basis and in the smallest ways that actually push people forward.
Yeah.
So I don't want to lose that, because I've gained someone else who I love too. You're added to the love that I have. So I don't want to fracture anything that I already have. And I suggest that people really take that into consideration. It's not to say that your spouse doesn't come first and all of those things, but if they're interfering with you having those other relationships, be it with yourself or your family, not okay.
Yeah.
Not okay.
One of the things that I've experienced is I've had where friends have kind of fallen off, and it wasn't really because of our relationship. And it wasn't until I would call them and dig in and find out that they were going through some things. And that's why it fell off. And so sometimes it's not because they're not happy with your situation or whatever the case may be. Sometimes they fall off because they're going through an extreme situation themselves.
Absolutely.
And so that's why for me, and I can nag the hell out of my friends because I want to know what's going on. And especially my strong friends. I definitely want to know what's going on because all they talk about is, I can handle it. I can handle it. Can you really? How do you handle it? And really trying to make sure they're okay. After a good friend of mine, Chris, who you met, died of cancer, that really got me into, I have to check in on people. And not just assume that the reason why they fell off is because I got married. So often they're going through some stuff. And sometimes people don't want to burden you with their issues. And so they just fall off the map there. And so, sometimes I just go through my list of friends and call them, hey, what's going on? What's going on? But the great thing is they all love you. And so, and some of them will even call you, and so that's one of the powerful things about our relationship is that not only have we not lost friends, we've actually gained friends because of each other.
Right. And some friendships have become even stronger.
Yes.
Because I'm not sure why they became stronger, but they did. You know what I mean? Maybe that extra effort of making sure that you're staying in contact is, they're trying to make sure they're maintaining the friendship, and so are you. And so that does make things a bit stronger. But you're right. Sometimes people are going through their own thing. And so when you reach out to them, I guess if I was going through something and I kind of disappeared, I'd want my friends to reach out to me. And I want to lean on them. Instead of saying that I'm okay if I'm not, that knowing that they know me. I'm not talking about just acquaintances or whatever. I'm talking about your good friends that have been there and will be there. Lean on them. Especially if they're coming to you. That's important to do. It doesn't mean that you're not talking to your spouse about some of these same things, but it's just they're going to give you a different view on things, and they know you in a way that your spouse doesn't know you, honestly. And so they've known you longer and many, many times and seen you go through a lot more. So don't let those friendships
go. Absolutely not. And I've been, the other thing I've been lucky about is that I have a really great family. I've got my sisters who are just the greatest. And they just want their brother to be happy. So if their brother is happy and their brother's taken care of, then they're happy. My parents have been great throughout this process. All of my kids, I call them kids, even though some of them in their 20s. But they've all been great about this. And so it really has made the situation really nice. But for me, I had an added level of anxiety about all of this because I've been through this twice before. And I was nervous that one of my friends or someone in my family would be like, oh, here you go again.
Right.
But I think that they've seen my evolution
Mm-hmm.
and seen, how I still have so much life left in me, because a lot of this was, after turning 50, which I'm 53 now, but after turning 50 and realizing, wow, I got a whole lot of living left to do.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is great,
Right. Right.
and my friends, a lot of them around the same age, and they're starting to see that as well.
Right.
And so now they're happy for me having this great relationship, and they're especially happy because they love you, and so that makes it a whole lot easier. But yeah, it's really been a great experience.
It has. And one thing I think I want to keep in mind is that a person's lifestyle, a couple's lifestyle, also can help maintain or it can hurt
Yes.
relationships
Yes.
outside of the marriage, because luckily you have a job. First of all, you work from home.
Yes.
But you're not even glued to a computer for 8 hours or 6 or 5 or any length of time, right? So you really have a lot of freedom throughout your day to connect with your friends.
Yes.
And whatnot. And then when I come home, you're not working these long, late hours. You have the freedom to connect with me.
Yes.
It's probably harder for people who have like a 9 to 5 or to 6 or 7 or work late hours and things like that. They barely even see their spouse. Or if they have a spouse that doesn't help very much, so they're really loaded with either home chores or home and work chores.
Yes.
So that makes it difficult too. So I think that's something to think about, to consider. How can I shift my life so that I have the freedom to maintain my loving relationships with people? Not everyone has the freedom to do that, but I think if you don't have as much freedom with your time as, say, we do,
right,
you got to still find ways to get it in there.
You really do, and
probably even more so, because you need that support. You need to make sure if you have kids, you have someone you can trust.
Yes.
I mean, I understand how scary it could be to put your kids' life in someone else's hands, but there's a billion people on the planet, and there's no one you can trust.
Yeah.
That's an issue. Like, you might want to work on that, and
yeah, I mean, this is interesting because we started off this podcast really wanting to talk about how our relationships with friends and family have changed since, not only since we've been married, but since we've been together and since we've been close and everything. And what it's really turning into is making sure your relationship with yourself doesn't suffer as well, with your relationship.
Right.
And for me, because of the fact that in my previous marriage, I did lose myself, I'm like extra vigilant to make sure that I'm still doing a lot of the things that I like to do. And now, and you haven't tried to stop me. Well, you have tried to stop me from a few things, like jumping out of an airplane and stuff like that. Yes, yeah. So you have tried to stop me from a few things, But okay, fine. But for the most part, the things that are important to me, you make sure that I can do those things. You encourage me to do those things, and I want to do those same things for you. So. So it's like when you and your friends want to go to happy hour or go to a concert, it's like, hey, do you need a ride? You want me to drop you off? Whatever the case may be, because what I've learned going through a lot of these relationships is the more you're able to take care of yourself, the better relationship we have.
Right.
So I want you to be more selfish because that benefits me.
How selfish of you.
It is selfish of me, actually. But yeah, I think that's important. And I see that I think that message is really getting out there, where people are putting more time into their relationships and into themselves. Because if you look at, marriages when we were kids, in the 70s and 80s, it was all about work and kids. And then one day the kids would grow up and move out, and you're like, who are you again?
Yeah.
What's your name? you become just roommates, and making sure that our friendship stays strong and that our love stays strong is really critical.
Right.
And it's great to have friends that encourage that and family that pushes that.
Absolutely.
Because when you go through stressful situations, you want to lean on a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And when that friend is not the type to really lead you in a positive direction, then that can be difficult as well.
Right, right. And a piece that I want to add is, even if you are not married,
Mm-hmm.
but you are tied very closely because let's say you're a single parent,
Mm-hmm.
and so you're spending all your time with your kids, and you're not maintaining your friendships or your relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
And the same if you're a caregiver of a parent, that's important too, to, find a way to get some time to yourself and not feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
And then also us friends who are outside of those things in particular, someone who is a single parent or a caregiver, making sure that we're there for those people as well.
Yes.
They need us.
Yes.
So we don't, just because we're married doesn't mean that we're going to abandon our single friends.
Right. Oh, no.
Right.
No.
No. Yeah. I don't like to see it like these two worlds. These are my single friends. These are my
right.
married friends.
No.
We can all hang out together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can all hang out separately, whatever. But,
Yes.
they need the support too. And that makes me feel good when I'm still helping someone. I don't want to think I'm like now in this new elite group.
Right.
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 I'm proud of being married and all that finally, at 54. But at the same time, I know what it's like. I lived most of my years single,
right.
And I know what that's like too. So I wouldn't want to abandon anyone.
Yeah.
In that way. So if I'm doing that, check me, please.
And I think in the future, we'll talk to some of our friends about, how their relationships have been affected by their marriages or their relationships and things of that nature, and bring more people into the conversation.
Yeah.
But as we draw this to a close, are there any final words you want to say before I do a little bit more business?
I just want to say, love the one you're with.
Yes.
Love your friends, love your family, and love yourself, and make sure you give time to each of those different people. It's so important to keep growing as a person who's alive, fully live. That would be my hope to all of you out there. and myself. I'm talking to myself here.
Yeah. And for me, I really want to talk about this whole podcast journey that we've been on, and we're learning things, about audio and video, and working through our messages and everything. And I really appreciate people who have stuck with us throughout this process. We're getting more and more comments now in the comment section. We asked for that, and we're getting that. We really appreciate that, because we really want to keep this discussion going, and we want to bring value to whoever watches or listens to our podcast. And so if we do, please like and share and subscribe. I know sometimes you get tired of the shameless plugs, but this is one of the things that helps to keep us going, is knowing that we're making an impact, especially since these are conversations that we have, between the two of us anyway. We're just putting microphones up to us and recording it.
Right. And one thing I would like to do is, I really want to shout out Frederick, because he's saying we, because he's always saying we, and he did long before we got married, which is what I love about him. Everything's a we. But it's really him who, is figuring out these microphones, upgrading the microphones, going in and doing all the editing and the work, the color, the sound, dealing with all the technical difficulties. That's him. That's him doing that. I step in and be like, okay, let's use this photo, or change that font, or move this a little bit here. And of course, we work together to come up with the ideas. However, it's mostly you who's making sure that this gets out to everybody. So,
well, thank you, love. I enjoy the process. I enjoy learning how to do these things, and I'm so encouraged by the people who have called, and some of my friends, when I see them out there and they're telling me that the impact that this podcast is having. And, we really want to keep this going. And so we really appreciate, everyone, listening and watching and sharing with others.
Right.
We really appreciate that.
We do. Yep. Thank you so much.
So for this 24th episode of Love, Growth, and Narratives, I'm Frederick.
And I'm Tiffany.
Thank you so much. We will see you soon.
Yes. See you next week.